Good evening and welcome. Welcome to part two of our exploration of Mahamudra, Shamatha Vipassana and the Mahamudra tradition by reading through Takpotashi Namgyal's Moonbeams of Mahamudra. An eloquent, what is it? The real name of the text has a cool name. Moonbeams of Eloquence, clarifying the way to cultivate Mahamudra, the definitive meaning. Welcome back, those of you who are here for part one, and welcome those of you who are new. So we'll begin with our chant as usual. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. Whatever the virtues or the many fields of knowledge, all are steps on the path of omniscience. May these arise in the clear mirror of intellect. O Manjushri, please accomplish this. So for part two, looking at the syllabus, we are going to go through 3 chapters of Moonbeams. Maybe we take a quick look at the table of contents. Table of contents we went through in the first segment we went through part 1, the common samadhis, and now we enter into the uncommon Mahamudra. Maybe that sort of means like that Mahamudra in general is uncommon as opposed to there being a common Mahamudra and an uncommon one. But we'll see if we can find that out. Generating confidence, preliminaries, Mahamudra approaches, and Shamatha. 4 chapters. And then we'll conclude with a little exploration of the teaching on meditation by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche and how that might compare to the presentations of Shamatha Vipassana that we've seen in this text so far. And so tonight we begin on part 2, Uncommon Mahamudra, Generating Confidence, chapter 5. And this chapter has the explanation that elaborates upon the way to cultivate the uncommon Mahamudra. And we see the detailed outline here. Tibetans love these outlines. 3 parts, 2 sections, 4 divisions, and 3 parts. And boom, the meaning of its name and its enumerations on page 114, the first section of the text in this chapter 5, Generating Confidence. Trungpa Rinpoche developed a whole set of teachings, received Terma, all about generating confidence. So all about this chapter. The name for this Dharma is Mahamudra. The meaning of its name and its enumeration. So first we have this long presentation of all these different ways of understanding Mahamudra and its divisions, this very complicated enumeration of different types of ways that Mahamudra is referred to, and the schemes of what are called the 4 mudras, many various versions of those, and then a little interesting commentary at the end. So I won't belabor this section where it is not that helpful, and we'll try to focus on the parts that are helpful. And feel free to add, contribute, ask, and so forth as we go. The name for this Dharma is Mahamudra, which is rendered into Tibetan as Chakya Chenpo. As for mudra, Chakya, generally speaking, mudra, or seal, as often translated into English. And this is not the animal nor the yoga posture, but it's like something that you might stamp on a formal document, your certificate of incorporation or something like that. A mark, a sign, and characteristic are synonyms. So the great mudra, the great sign. Something is called a mudra in the sense that it will be or has been imprinted on something else. For example, in the world, when a stamp is or has been imprinted on something else, that is called a seal. Similarly, since this dharma is or has been imprinted on all phenomena of samsara and nirvana, it is called mudra. There's no implication, by the way, that it was imprinted by somebody, but that it was primordially, that imprint is primordially accompanies all phenomena. The company is even a little bit shaky there. Similarly, since this dharma, something that signifies is referred to as mudra, so mudra is signifying. In the same way that the marks and signs on armor and the like signify specific traits, since this dharma signifies or shows the nature or the abiding state, meaning the true state, the real state of samsara and nirvana, it is called mudra. Something that cannot be superseded is called a mudra. For example, a king's decree that is imprinted with a seal cannot be superseded or overturned by his subjects or her subjects. So correspondingly, since the phenomena of samsara and nirvana do not supersede this dharma, it is called mudra. Similar description is found in the Sutra of the Questions of Gangana Ganja. Interesting name. Gangana Ganja. Being imprinted with the mudra of the Tathagatas means that mudra is what is inseparable from thusness. Thusness is a translation of ta in Sanskrit, which is similar to shunyata, but has a sort of, doesn't have as much of a sort of possibly negative tinge to it. It is without divisions, without engagement, and without adherence. It does not move, nor is it something that is moved. It cannot be swayed by the world with its gods, humans, asuras. Why? Because that mudra is imprinted upon the world with its gods, humans, and asuras. That mudra of the Tathagatas is the mudra of non-arising. It is the mudra of emptiness. It is the mudra of the absence of characteristics. It is the mudra of the absence of expectancy. Expectancy is a little bit of an odd term. This is a reference to the three doors of liberation. The three doors of liberation are emptiness, characteristiclessness, and often translated as wishlessness, no longer longing for something else, not expecting something else, giving up expectation or wishing for something else. It is the mudra of unconditionality. It is the mudra of separation from desire. It is the mudra of thusness. It is the mudra of the true end. It is the mudra of space. So it is the stamp or seal of these different characteristics of the true nature of reality. Maha, Chenpo, signifies that there is nothing higher than this dharma, as the secret city states. The fourth is the highest cause. Presumably this is a quote that uh, began by going through the first, second, and third, which are unclear here. But the fourth is the highest, so we focus on that. It is what brings actual awakening. It is the meditation on Mahamudra. There's nothing higher than that. Alternatively, the term Mahamudra is explained in the Mahamudra Tilaka. This is Mahamudras, and this is a very famous, probably the most famous quote on the meaning of Mahamudra, and Trungpa Rinpoche quotes this in his presentations of Mahamudra. This is Mahamudra. Mudra, Chak, is the wisdom of emptiness. Mudra, Gya. So in Sanskrit we have the same word, Mudra, and in Tibetan they split it into two parts, Chak, Gya. Gya is free from the phenomena of samsara, so wisdom and freedom. Maha is unification. As it states, Mudra, Chak, signifies wisdom that is reflexively aware of emptiness. Reflexively meaning non-dually aware of emptiness. Self-aware of emptiness. The 5 stages, a text by a fundamental Vajrayana text by Nagarjuna adds, what is seen? Wisdom aware of itself, by itself. Here is mudra. So wisdom is not aware, ultimate wisdom is not aware of something else, it's aware of itself, as itself, by itself, that there is no other thing, no separate individual phenomena. Mudra, Gya, indicates being free from samsara's phenomena of percepts and perceivers, that duality, and that has been or is imprinted on all phenomena. That is the true nature of all phenomena. All phenomena seem to or appear as percepts and perceivers, but that is not the accurate way that things are. The Guhya Samaja Tantra proclaims free from all entities, devoid of skandhas, dhatus, and ayatanas. Other than skandhas, dhatus, and ayatanas, there's no real other phenomena. Percepts, and perceivers. It is equality in which the self-entity of phenomena is absent. So, ultimate emptiness, equality, space, no absence of characteristics, ultimate wisdom that knows itself, because there's no separate object to be known. Maha signifies unifying or uniting, method and prajna and the like. So the two complementary qualities of a bodhisattva, method or skillful means, and wisdom, unified. It means that this is the most sublime of all meditations. So here Mahamudra is presented as a meditation, whereas up until now it's being presented as the true nature of phenomena. So it has this ambiguous quality of, Mahamudra has this ambiguous quality of being many different sorts of things, not sort of kinds of things. Not things, but kinds of things. Maitripa's 10 verses on suchness states uniting method and prajna is the meditation for the best yogins and yoginis. It is to unite with Mahamudra. So the unification of method and wisdom, prajna and upaya. Other explanations of the meaning of this name include the following. Kalachakra Mahapada's Padmani commentary on the difficult points explains. So this is a person, Kalachakra Mahapada, and that's the name of his texts. Mahamudra is Prajnaparamita. We all know what Prajnaparamita is, right? So now we know Mahamudra, which gives birth to all Tathagatas, past, present, and future. It is Mudra, Chakya, because non-abiding nirvana. So non-abiding nirvana is the nirvana presented in the Mahayana tradition as a distinction to the type of nirvana presented in the earlier tradition, which had two possible, there were two possible types of nirvana in the early tradition. Nirvana achieved while one still possessed skandhas, ayatanas, and dhatus, i.e., when one was still alive, and therefore one was still subject to the karma of having a body, and then nirvana after having passed away, pari-nirvana, no longer subject to any karma of having a form of any kind. And so it had that dualistic understanding in the earlier tradition of Buddhism. And Mahayana came along and said, Nirvana doesn't depend on whether you're alive or passed away. Nirvana is non-abiding. It doesn't abide in the body or anywhere else. Or unreleased bliss, seemingly a reference to the yogic practice of retention, imprints its seal on bliss. It is Maha because it is superior to Karma Mudra and Jnana Mudra, and because it is free from the latent tendencies of samsara. Just to give a very crude, brief, simple, limited description of Karma Mudra and Mahamudra. Karma Mudra is tantric practice with a consort, and Jnana, an actual consort, and Jnana Mudra is the visualization of unification with a consort in a visualized manner. The exalted, and that's a general description. Things vary, as we'll see shortly. The exalted Gampopa says, Mudra Chak is the realization that all that appears and exists, all of samsara, nirvana, and nirvana, does not pass beyond unborn dharmata. Mudra means that whatever appears and whatever exists does not transcend the intrinsic state. Nothing has ever arisen from that state. Nothing whatsoever exists that does not transcend. Mudra means that whatever appears and whatever exists does not transcend the intrinsic state. It is the intrinsic state. It doesn't need to transcend it, which is a reference to the way nirvana is presented in the early tradition as transcendence. Maha is the realization that dharmata is free in itself. So ideally, as one hears these descriptions of Mahamudra as being various aspects of the ultimate state, one enters into the samadhi of unification, of understanding the ultimate state by hearing these somewhat repetitive descriptions over and over. Serdingpa's lamp for the yana states, the etymology of Mahamudra is as follows: because karma, mental afflictions, and obscurations are linked with the Dharmakaya, your own mind, free in itself, it is called mudra. So this is what an interesting beginning of this description. So normally Dharmakaya and versus karma, mental afflictions, and obscurations are have no relationship at all, are completely exclusive sets of phenomena. They do not have any relationship. But here it's said that they are linked. So karma, mental afflictions, and obscurations are Dharmakaya, which is no other than your own mind, already free in itself. If in case you were unaware of that, it's good to know. It is called mudra because concepts of characteristics cannot go beyond it. It is mudra. So the conceptual mind can't go beyond Mahamudra. Since it's greater than all the yanas, the philosophical yana, kriya, charya, and so forth. So the philosophical refers to the Mahayana, Bodhisattva yana, or Paramita yana. Kriya, charya are a reference to the lower tantric yanas. And Mahamudra is greater than all yanas because it's past a yana that has no difference between the ground and the result. So the whole idea of jnana becomes questionable, and therefore it is Maha. The enumerations of this name, it is taught that ultimate suchness, unsurpassable wisdom, universal excellence, Mahamudra, and Dharmakaya are equivalents. So Mahamudra is ultimate suchness, unsurpassable wisdom, the universal excellence of a Tathagata, and the Dharmakaya of a Tathagata are all Mahamudra. In Djibouti, famous early tantric master who was a king and received tantric teachings from the Buddha, says in his sadhana for the city of wisdom, he observes, this is the ultimate, it is the unsurpassable wisdom, Vajra, indestructible, called universal excellence, and Mahamudra know this to be the Dharmakaya. So Mahamudra, Dharmakaya, equivalent. Enumerations of names are explained in the 7 yogas. Enumerations such as the lack of nature, thusness, dharmata, the equality of phenomena, and the ultimate are only about this very lack of nature. They do not point to anything else. How can they even point to anything at all? Its essence and divisions, it being Mahamudra, the essence of Mahamudra, it is explained as not abiding anywhere, being free from all characteristics and pervading everything like space. If you can realize that description of Mahamudra, then you're there. In Djibouti, teaches just as non-abiding space is omnipresent and free from characteristics, so too is the ultimate. Maitripa says Mahamudra, unification transcending the intellect, is clear yet non-conceptual. So it clearly appears to the mind, but is in a non-conceptual way, like space. It's pervasive and vast. Great compassion appears, though without nature, like the moon and water. So great compassion is the inseparable quality of the manifestation of that wisdom mind, that non-conceptual, clear wisdom mind which transcends the intellect. So the unification of wisdom and compassion. It appears, though without nature, like the moon and water, so it has no separation. Being clarity, it's free from labels, center, or edge, not veiled by anything. It's unstained, beyond hopes and fears, like the dream of a mute. It's inexpressible. So a mute has an amazing dream and have a very hard time communicating that. Its divisions. There are 3, ground, path, and fruition Mahamudra. Generally speaking, ground Mahamudra is the dharmata, the suchness of all phenomena, naturally luminous emptiness. So, naturally means uncontrived, primordially, unarisen, not created. Luminous emptiness, those 2 qualities conjoined, which is primordially, from the beginning, free from elaborations, and is the governing principle of samsara and nirvana. So the ground Mahamudra is the governing principle of samsara and nirvana. Specifically, it is the basic nature, the primordial abiding state of our own mind. Clear, brilliant, and unidentifiable, which is beyond being an object of thought or expression. So beyond being an object of thought. What do you think about things that are beyond being an object of thought? Path Mahamudra relies on the paths of listening, reflecting, and meditating, the 3 stages of prajna. It's the realization that all phenomena, which include all that appears and exists, all of samsara and nirvana, are luminous emptiness, primordially without any nature that arises, abides, or ceases. So primordially without any quality of coming or going, or being or not being, not having been or then being. In other words, as it was before, so it is now. It is the special meditation on the view that is recognized right within our own experience. That's a nice explanation of Path Mahamudra. The special meditation on the view, so the view is the ground, the understanding of the ground that was presented, that is recognized right within our own experience. So recognizing the ground as presented on the page before within our own experience, meaning continually and in all ways and pervading all experiences. Having become familiar with that ground Mahamudra through Path Mahamudra. So ground Mahamudra is introduced to us initially in a conceptual way. Intellectually, we understand it intellectually. And then through Path Mahamudra, we meditate on ground Mahamudra and ideally come to understanding, experience, and realization of ground Mahamudra. Realization of ground Mahamudra being fruition Mahamudra. And having purified all the most subtle dualistic appearances, which is a reference to the last three bhumis of the Bodhisattva path, 8, 9, and 10, where the two obscurations have been overcome fully, the klesha obscuration and the knowledge obscuration, and all that remains are the very subtle propensities from the knowledge obscuration of experiencing dualistically, as if there's an experiencer and an experienced. Those are the most subtle dualistic appearances, ninyam, appearing as two. Wisdom endowed with twofold purity, the purity, natural purity, before the path, and then purity cultivated on the path. Free from obscuration, manifests like the sky, free from haze. That is fruition, Mahamudra. Those are also subdivided. We should be aware that the threefold classification of thusness, which we just said was beyond divisions and so forth, uncompounded and so forth, such as is found in the highest continuum, which is a key text for this tradition by Maitreya, one of Maitreya's 5 texts called the 5 Dharmas of Maitreya in Sanskrit, Uttara Tantra. So we should be aware that the threefold classification of thusness, such as is found in Maitreya's Uttara Tantra, is the categorization of ground Mahamudra. That text states impure, pure, and completely pure are the phases of sentient beings, bodhisattvas and tathagatas. So sentient beings are impure, bodhisattvas are both impure and pure. As they tread on the path, they have both aspects. And then tathagatas are completely pure. Classifications of Path Mahamudra. So that was classifications of ground Mahamudra. Path Mahamudra classifications include the divisions of shamatha and vipassana, which are referred to in the Samvarodaya, which is a tantra. Because emptiness is discerned, meditative concentration also becomes prajna, or wisdom. Because emptiness is discerned through prajna, meditative concentration becomes prajna. So because of the cultivation of vipassana, emptiness is discerned, and then shamatha also becomes prajna. So then we experience shamatha on the nature that we've understood or discerned, which is emptiness. Path Mahamudra also includes the divisions into the 4 mudras, as the Heart of Wisdom Tantra teaches. Here Mahamudra is divided into 4: Karma Mudra, Samaya Mudra, Jnana Mudra, and Dharma Mudra, which is a precursor to the next soon coming section on these 4 mudras. We should be aware that the classifications of the 5 wisdoms, So the five wisdoms are the wisdoms of the five Buddha families, all accomplishing discriminating awareness, and so on and so forth. The three kayas, and so forth, such as those described by Indrabhuti in his sadhana for the city of wisdom. These are divisions of fruition, Mahamudra. So fruition, Mahamudra, is the different aspects of enlightenment, the different characteristics of the Sambhogakaya, which is one of the three kayas. He, Indrabhuti, says, in the same way that your own image appears clearly in the mirror, wisdom appears as the Dharmakaya and is thus called mirror-like. So he's talking about the mirror-like wisdom of the Buddha family, which is the basic wisdom of the Sambhogakaya, the Buddha families. The benefits of knowing Mahamudra and the problems of not knowing it. 9 out of 10 doctors emphasize that if we do not understand and realize the abiding state of Mahamudra, even if we know hundreds of thousands of other yogas, we will not attain the supreme result of liberation. Now this seems odd, like if you don't know Mahamudra, you can't attain liberation, but remember that Mahamudra is equivalent to Prajnaparamita and suchness and all these other ways of expressing the ultimate. So it's really saying, if you don't understand and realize the ultimate nature of reality, even if you know hundreds or thousands of other different practices, one will not attain liberation. It is said that if we do understand and realize it, we will know everything, all dharmas, and we will be Vajrasattva, who is the supreme Sambhogakaya Buddha, referred to as the head of the sixth family that leads all the 5 families of the Sambhogakaya. The famous text Mahamudra Tilaka says, whoever does not know Mahamudra may be a Buddha, but they're not a yogin or yogini. A little bit confusing, honestly. Those who do not know this purity, the bindu of Mahamudra. So bindu is this odd term that's used in different ways. Bindu is a drop or an essence in some situations, and here maybe it means the essence of Mahamudra. This purity, the essence of Mahamudra, may be a yogin or yogini knowing 100,000 yoga and yogini tantras, but the sublime result will elude them. When all dharmas are known, that is certainly Buddhahood. When Mahamudra is known, you are the glorious Vajrasattva. His wisdom nature is the definition of Mahamudra. Not sure why Vajrasattva is a he, but anyway, the commentary on Bodhicitta by Nagarjuna observes, those who don't know emptiness are not receptive vehicles for liberation. Those confused beings will circle in the prison of existence as one of 6 kinds of beings. We know these 6 realms well, I think. Maitrapa states, once this is realized, all that can possibly appear is Mahamudra, the great pervasive infinite Dharmakaya. He also says those who do not realize that will not be free, apart from some temporary moments. When that's realized, what can bind? When one realizes that, what can possibly bind one to samsara? How Mahamudra is presented in the Sutras and Tantras, Part 2. The Sutras teach the meaning of Mahamudra using a variety of names of other mudras. Mahamudra being one mudra, there's all these other mudras. The Sutra of the Questions of Sagaramati says, so a sutra here, Sagaramati, Mahayana Sutra that is, all phenomena are imprinted with the mudra of liberation. They are non-dual and pure. So the mudra of liberation is one other mudra. It also says because all phenomena are undifferentiated, like the center of space, they are imprinted or sealed with the mudra of equality, another mudra, equality mudra. It presents 20 types of mudras. just in case we don't have enough categories. There's the mudra that is stainless and internally pure by virtue of having purified belief in self, the selflessness mudra. It concludes that list of 20 mudras with this summarizing verse. This Dharma is stainless, pure, virtuous, natural luminosity, equal to and the same as space, primordially unborn, not arising, not occurring, not abiding, non-abiding, and unceasing. It is the unwavering and stainless mudra of the victors. The unwavering stainless mudra. The Sutra on Maitreya's setting forth, meaning setting forth on the path of a bodhisattva, presents 15 mudras, beginning with child of good family. All phenomena are of the mudra of emptiness, the emptiness mudra, Shunyata mudra. The Sutra of the Questions of Gangana Ganja lists 10 mudras, which were already stated. There are many other references to mudras, such as that found in the Sutra of the Questions of the Girl Ratna, that is, the instructions on the Mahayana. The characteristic of all phenomena is the characteristic that is equivalent to space. This characteristic is similar to a mudra. The imprint of a mudra can't be undone. This is an imprint that arose before that which was imprinted arose, which was present rather. The numerous other uses of mudra in the sutras include the terms jnana mudra, so wisdom mudra, and dharma mudra. Dharma meaning phenomena mudra or reality mudra, depending on how we interpret the term dharma. In the Sutra of the Good Aeon, which is a famous Sutra Bhadrakalpa Sutra Kalpa Mudra, Sutra that lists all the 1,000 Buddhas of this Aeon. This Aeon is called the Good Aeon, and there's 1,000 Buddhas in this Aeon, and Shakyamuni is the 4th Buddha of this Good Aeon, and Maitreya will be the 5th, and the Karmapa apparently is the 1,000th. And the term Dharma Mudra in the teaching of the armor array, another sutra. In the lower tantras, there are the following uses of mudras. The lower tantras refers to Kriya Charya and Yoga tantras. The Manjushri Root Tantra, which is a very famous tantra that leads the collection of tantras in the Kanjur in the Tibetan tradition. It was placed at the very beginning. It was considered to be sort of the head of all tantras. The Manjushri Root Tantra uses Mahamudra for the way hand mudras bind, and the Vairochana Abhisambodhi Tantra uses Mahamudra to designate the deity's emblems, the different markings of a deity that by which one can identify different deities. So first the hand mudras, and then the other indications of a deity, such as the deity's seed syllable or implements that a deity is holding. In the Yoga Tantras, there are many occurrences, such as using the 4 mudras for the way hand mudras bind. Generally, this means binding the mind to itself. To summarize the teachings in the sutras and tantras on the ground abiding state, ground Mahamudras such as that Tathagata Garbha, Buddha nature, abides primordially in the mind streams of sentient beings, and that the nature of mind is luminosity, are presentations of ground Mahamudra. So this would be all the sutras of the 3rd turning of the wheel of the Dharma by the Buddha, teachings on the development of the Dhatu of Tathagata Garbha, on freedom from elaborations, instances of emptiness, the unreality of phenomena, their absence of a self-entity, their equality, their unification are all considered path Mahamudra. So interestingly, the sutras of the 3rd turning are presented as ground Mahamudra, and the sutras of the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, which focuses on emptiness, is considered to be path Mahamudra. Teachings on the awakening of the wisdom of complete omniscience, such as the four kayas and five wisdoms, are presentation of fruition Mahamudra. Those are sutras that are scattered between the second and third turnings. Specifically, how Mahamudra is taught in the Niruttara Tantras, which we normally see in many texts as Anuttara, but here the translator is using a more technically correct term, Niruttara. And together they both refer to the fourth and highest class of tantras in the new tradition of Tibetan Buddhism of the Kagyu, Sakya, and Gelugpa traditions. Whereas the higher tantras in the Nyingma tradition are Mahayoga, Anuyoga, and Ati Yoga tantras. So in the Niruttara tantras, this has three parts: the way the expositions of 3 and 4 mudras are taught, which is where we begin, so I won't repeat the others yet. And that starts with a quote from the Kala Chakra Root Tantra on 122. So many tantras have different manifestations. There's root tantras and explanatory tantras and extensive tantras, and there's probably a couple of other types of tantras that I'm not familiar with, but those are the three main ones: root, explanatory, and extensive. So the Kala Chakra Root Tantra, which is the most famous of them that we see translations of, states, having given up the Karma Mudra and the imputed Jnana Mudra entirely. So as I stated earlier, Karma Mudra being practiced with a physical consort, and Jnana Mudra being the visualization of unification with a consort. So imputed. I shouldn't add words. Meditate on Mahamudra through uniting with the immutable. So instead of uniting with a consort, unite with the immutable, the inexpressible. It also says union with a Karma Mudra, the passion of a Jnana Mudra, and the single union with Mahamudra increase that immutability. I said inexpressibility. It means I got that wrong. Immutable is unchanging, right? Interestingly, the passion of a Jnana Mudra, you would think that would be the passion of a Karma Mudra, but the passion of your visualized consort. Padmavajra advises in his text, Secret Cities. Sounds like a cool text. Abandon all your ideas about Karma Mudras with their wrathful displays. Oh, so that's why they talked about passion of Jnana Mudras. Karma Mudras are wrathful, and do the same with Jnana Mudras. Meditate on Mahamudra. So dispense with these other mudras. Focus on Mahamudra. The synopsis of our view, asserted by Manjushri, teaches, cast aside your many notions about the left-handed and malicious Karma Mudras. So left-handed is an odd term that refers to Tantra that is used for devious purposes, self-referential purposes, such as harming other beings and gaining benefits for oneself by doing so. Malicious, evil, causing Karma Mudras, and the similar Jnana Mudras rely on Mahamudra. Those depictions of 3 mudras, Karma, Jnana, and Mahamudra, are followed by some Mahasiddhas. There are other presentations of 3 mudras, such as the one in the 4th chapter of the Illuminating Lamp by Arya Deva, I think. As for the mudras, there are 3 Dharma mudras of characteristics, and Mahamudra, a different scheme. There are also presentations of 4 mudras. So here we go with numerous different presentations of mudras, which we'll just go through very quickly. The Vajramala, an explanatory tantra, states, next the Vajrabhagavan said, the highest divisions of mudras are correctly said to be Dharma, Karma, Samaya, and Mahamudra. The secret tilaka of the moon explains the first is Dharma Mudra, the second is Maya Mudra, the third is Mahamudra, and the fourth is Karma Mudra. The Heart of Wisdom Tantra discusses Mahamudra by categorizing it as the form Karma, Samaya, Jnana, and Dharma Mudra. Pramita Vadra's commentary on the Sarva Buddha Sama Yoga looks at four mudras: Maha, Samaya, Dharma, and Karma Mudra. Acharya Bharakara Gupta, in his commentary on the Buddha Kapala, categorizes the four mudras in terms of the perfection phase, referring to the two phases of tantric practice: development and completion, or creation and perfection or completion phase, the fruition period, and the generation phase or creation phase, each having the four Karma, Dharma, Maha, and Samaya Mudra. Naropa's commentary on the Hevajra Tantra explains Karma, Jnana, Maha, and Samaya Mudra. The luminosities called Karma, Jnana, Maha, Mudra, and Samaya are the cause, the object of meditation, the attainment, and the indestructible. Maitripa, in his Determining the Four Mudras, explains the four as Karma Mudra, Dharma Mudra, Mahamudra, and Samaya Mudra. So you can see there's a great obsession with these mudras. The order of the four mudras is presented variously in many texts and commentaries by Mahasiddhas, and there are many different explanations of their identification. I have not included all the permutations, however, because it would give us a headache. About this approach, a certain person, Sakya Pandita, comments. So we can see that there's two people that really give Takpatashi Namgyal a headache, and that he goes to some length to refer to and refute. And those are Tsongkhapa. We saw that in the last section. And then here we have Sakya Pandita. And he cites some of Sakya Pandita's statements about Mahamudra as practiced in the Kagyu tradition. And Sakya Pandita was very uncomplimentary in his comments about Kagyu Mahamudra. And so Takpatashi Namgyal was, you can imagine that he felt very hurt by those comments and compelled to defend the Kagyu's tradition of Mahamudra, as he does in this section and a subsequent section. So he quotes from Sakya Pandita, whatever is the Mahamudra of Naropa and Maitripa. And the way he says that, whatever, you can imagine the tone of like, whatever it is those guys talk about is exactly what is taught in the secret mantra tantras, like saying it's not something else than is already in the secret tantras, in the tantras. It consists of the mudras of Karma, Dharma, and Samaya, and Mahamudra. That indicates he is not registered that the compositions by those two Mahasiddhas in which they explain the four mudras according to the mantra text contain different sequences and identifications. So he's complaining that Sakya Pandita has just like completely ignored all the variations and complexities. Must have given him a headache like us. And but Takpatashi Namgyal is disappointed in somebody as great as Sakya Pandita not being able to comprehend the subtleties of this, in which they explain the four mudras according to the mantra text contain difference. His remark seems to be the guesswork of someone who has never looked at any of their texts where they expound the abiding state Mahamudra, because their works contain many different sequences and identifications of the four mudras, and their sequencing and what he repeats do not match. So he's referred to the schemes of Naropa and Maitripa incorrectly, as well as condescendingly. If we analyze this statement just a bit, it implies that those two Mahasiddhas only gave presentations of the four mudras in accordance with the mantra texts, that there are no texts by them in which they expound the abiding state Mahamudra. So what is maybe not that clear here is that, for one, Tashi Namgyal is upset that there's not a recognition that Mahamudra was presented in texts outside of the Tantras that are equally as authoritative and important. The dohas of these and other siddhas, and that they explain the abiding state Mahamudra, the ground Mahamudra, which is not well. The implication is that that is not well elaborated in the Tantras. And that is plain wrong. Although Naropa had traversed the ocean like sutras and tantras, he remained unsatisfied and apprenticed himself to the Mahasiddha Talopa, undergoing 12 great austerities. We all know his story, being the head master at Nalanda University. So he knew all the sutras and tantras very well, and yet he felt there was something that he didn't know that he needed to know, implying that there's something outside of the sutras and tantras that he had not yet experienced or understood. Through being taught the ultimate essence, Mahamudra, that's what's not in the sutras and tantras, apparently, which does not rely on the secret mantra path. So this is this interesting thing about Mahamudra, that it presents itself as a path that's separate from and beyond the tantric path as presented in the tantras. That Mahamudra is different from that and supreme to that. He was liberated thereby, being taught the ultimate essence, Mahamudra. If Sakyapandita's statement is correct, it means that the many texts on that type of Mahamudra, and there now he lists these texts that are other than tantras, such as Talopa's various dohas, tantric songs, including the one renowned as the Ganges Mahamudra, famous text of his teaching of Mahamudra to Naropa on the banks of the Ganges River, and then Naropa's 3 core texts on Mahamudra called Summary Verses on Mahamudra, Clarifying Wisdom, and Summary of the View. And all of these are available in translation, nice translations now, in books with commentary by Trongor Rinpoche called The Wisdom of Talopa and The Wisdom of Naropa, respectively, if you're interested, as well as the Ganges Mahamudras and many other translations and texts, including, it's at the back of the Myth of Freedom. And yeah, interestingly, so Tara, thank you, Tara, for adding that note. What Dzogchen Pulap Rinpoche presented in a talk on Sunday through the Taragar community platform, a talk on Mahamudra, in particular referring to Talopa's Ganges Mahamudra, is that he went the other way and sort of presented, instead of focusing on this topic that Tashi Namgyal is focused on, of how Mahamudra is presented differently outside of the sutras and tantras, Dzogchen Pulap Rinpoche also presented how Mahamudra is presented also within the sutras, because sometimes that is doubted by other Tibetan masters, that it's only presented outside the teachings of Buddha. And so he went through a number of quotations showing that Mahamudra is presented even in the sutras of the Buddha. Maitrapa, so to conclude that sentence, it ends with, these are not Naropa's viewpoints, if so. Maitrapa also perfected his knowledge and realization of the sutra mantra systems, yet, feeling dissatisfied, he apprenticed himself to the glorious Lord Shawaripa. Someday somebody's going to tell us who this guy is, because there's nothing known about Shawaripa. It's a total mystery. Having received from him the instructions on the ultimate essence, which are not based on secret mantra. So outside of secret mantra, this is one of the interesting things about the higher schemes of Vajrayana in the Tibetan tradition, Mahamudra and Mahati, is that they both present themselves as being superior to and outside of the tantras as well as the sutras. Let's see. Thereby, having received from him the secret instructions on ultimate essence, which are not based on secret mantra, he was liberated. If Sakyapandita is right, and Sakyapandita was an enormous authority in the Tibetan system, which is why Tashi Namgyal goes to great lengths to respond to his comments. If Sakyapandita is right, it means that the texts in his Dharma cycle, the dohas of Saraha, Senior and Junior, the text in his Dharma cycle, I think, refers to Maitripa's and Shawarripa's Dharma cycle. Dohas of Saraha Senior and Junior, Maitripa's own Dohas, and his summary verses on Mahamudra are not Maitripa's viewpoint. Not Sakya Pandita's, are not Maitripa's viewpoint. That's a weird sentence. If Sakya Pandita accepts those texts as the viewpoints of Naropa and Maitripa, then the force of whatever is, the opening part of his statement, in his statement, whatever is the Mahamudra, Naropa, and Maitripa overturns his rejection of any of their compositions that expound a Mahamudra that is not part of the four mudras. Sort of complicated sentence there, but not necessary to go further in that. The way the uncommon Mahamudra is taught is more important. The Mahamudra found within the aforementioned explanations of 3 or 4 mudras is taught by some to be the uncommon Mahamudra. Among the many such instances, the Mahamudra presented in the Kala Chakra system is the uncommon Mahamudra. So the Kala Chakra is considered to be the highest of the new schools of Tibetan Buddhism Tantra systems, the highest of the unsurpassable tantras. It says that emptiness endowed with the most sublime of manifestations, which is this code term that refers to is like an elaboration on the term emptiness, luminosity. The idea of luminosity is extrapolated into this phrase, sublime, most sublime of manifestations, meaning that even though, or because, I shouldn't say even though, because all phenomena are emptiness, therefore all phenomena are Buddha. And because Buddha means 2 things. It means the wisdom of Buddha, of knowing all phenomena's nature and the way they appear, the omniscience, and it means the 3 kayas, the manifestation, with all the strengths and capabilities and compassions and so forth that come with those 3 kayas. So emptiness is not a blank nothingness. Unchanging bliss and one taste are Mahamudra. When the stainless light, which is a commentary on the Kala Chakra, says Mahamudra is unchanging bliss, it is abundantly clear that the unchanging bliss is not a nominal wisdom. So nominal meaning intellectually understood or intellectually delineated wisdom, not the ultimate wisdom. So that unchanging bliss is not a limited wisdom based on experiences involving karma, jnana, mudras, and the like. It is natural, connate bliss, i.e. the ultimate Mahamudra. The 46th chapter of the Vajramala, very important root tantra, begins by describing the Mahamudra that is the abiding state of the ground. Next, I will explain the characteristics and meaning of Mahamudra. It is peace, the result of great yoga, the summation of the meaning of great wisdom. It is the excellent fortune of great bliss, the epitome of the supreme great taste, the great illusion, what is most subtle, the greatness of the great space. The mudra, that is the wisdom of the Tathagatas, is the citadel of non-conceptuality, the abode of the indivisible Vajrasattva, meaning indestructible essence, being non-conceptual, great bliss, unblemished, like space. So these are the characteristics and meaning of Mahamudra, peace, etc. So if you ever, if you feel confused about what Mahamudra is at the end of the day, after all these explanations, just come back to this one. It continues with a description of the Mahamudra, that is path, so that would be of the ground. Devoid of any nature and groundless, it is non-dual, without self, and inexpressible. Sounds like the ground Mahamudra so far. Yogins and yoginis with their reflexive awareness. So they're non-dualistic, self-aware Yes. Abandon all the imagined phenomena of skandhas, dhatus, and ayatanas. So those are viewed in this tradition as being imagined phenomena. And I think this is a reference to the three natures in the in the Chittamatra Yogacara scheme of things, where instead of there being two natures of relative and ultimate, we have three natures of the imaginary, which is the conceptual realm, the dependent, which is the alaya vijnana, and the ultimate, which is great wisdom, Mahamudra. They abandon meditation, an object of meditation, equipoise, and the twofold process. Presumably that refers to creation and completion stage practice. But so this is the path. Abandoning the path is the path. They separate consciousness from wisdom and give up mantras, recitations, and approach practices. Approach practices are a certain particular type of creation stage practice, creation and completion tantric practice. It concludes by describing the Mahamudra that is the result. Crossing over from the abodes of entities, they request great wisdom. Crossing over from the abodes of entities, so passing beyond from the realm of there being entities or things, they request great wisdom. Know that the great city is here. It is unsurpassable, Mahamudra. The commentary on this tantra by the Pandita Alamka Kalasha provides clear explanation of those scriptural passages, which is why it's not given here, I guess. The Mahamudra Tilaka says, back to this root tantra, the Mahamudra root tantra, Surateshwara said, Bhagavan Jnanadakarka, you have taught the secrets that destroy the fog of ignorance, but you have not taught Mahamudra. Lord of victors, please teach Mahamudra just as it is. In response to that supplication, the text continues. The Bhagavan replied, listen, goddess Mahamudra, sublime bliss. Mahamudra is the great secret. It is inexpressible, inexhaustible, unborn. It has the form of all and yet has no form. It is just a bundle of contradictions. So interestingly, the Bhagavan is speaking to a goddess named Mahamudra, which the Bhagavan glosses as supreme bliss. And apparently she wants to understand Mahamudra. And that would be Surateshwari. Formless, its form is the sublime principle. Beyond subtle or grand, the sublime principle, presumably a reference to the indivisibility of emptiness and the sublime of all manifestations. That was stated earlier. Beyond subtle or grand, its nature is immeasurable, truly stainless. It is luminous, not abiding anywhere. It does not arise and does not subside, always arising. Its manifestation is supreme. Liberated from time and circumstances, it creates birth and destruction. So Mahamudra becomes very clear at this point, right, after all these explanations, that Mahamudra is beyond explanation, beyond comprehension. So if anybody should ask you to explain Mahamudra, you just look at them and say nothing, right? Like that passage begins with a description of the abiding state of the ground. And it continues with an explanation of the methods for realizing it, the benefits of knowing it, and the problems of not knowing it, the result and the identification of its characteristics. So, did you catch all that? That was apparently in that passage, including the problems of not knowing it. Not quite sure if I can find that part, but The meaning of those topics are also clearly presented in Acharya Gambhira Vajra's commentary, which is not here, it seems. The Wisdom Tilaka text observes vastly beyond the realm of Brahma, which is the highest of the God realms. You, Surateshwari, imprint with a mudra. This is the bodhisattva, the female bodhisattva that the Buddha called Goddess Mahamudra. Because you imprint a mudra on infinity, you are known as Mahamudra. If you can imprint something on infinity, that's pretty good. Its commentary, Secret Suchness, explains on the basis of wisdom's radiance the Chandali of Mahamudra. On the basis of wisdom's radiance. So the idea is that wisdom is not a void, just a mere emptiness, but wisdom is unified or indivisible with luminosity, radiance, clarity. And this is called the Chandali of Mahamudra, or Chandali rather. Chandali, like Mahamudra, has different aspects, like a noun and it's like a thing, and a thing one experiences or attains or achieves or understands, as well as a practice one does. So Chandali that one practices is also known as Tumo, the inner yoga practice, and Chandali that one can understand or experience is like the supreme, I think. The Chandali of Mahamudra, free from elaborations. There is, in the progression of joys, natural joy. So there's a whole scheme of 4 levels of joy or bliss in the Vajrayana tradition, and there's bliss beyond bliss, I believe is the 4th one here, translated as natural bliss or joy. Through that we discover the nature of Mahamudra, natural joy, devoid of elaborations. It also says, since all sentient beings possess the nature of a Buddha, Mahamudra is the mother of the Bhagawan, that which gives birth to the Bhagawan, and the nature of the cause and result is the same. The nature of the mother and the nature of the result, the Bhagawan, are identical. That which gives birth is identical to that which is given birth. So for that reason, and because of the etymology, the meaning of sealing, that all things are imprinted, and all things are just the imprint. There's nothing other than the imprint. You are known as Mahamudra. Thus, non-elaboration, non-complexity, non-natural joy, the highest joy, and ground, dharmata, are explained as Mahamudra. So ground dharmata is an unusual term. Dharmata, the nature of phenomena, meaning generally the ultimate nature of phenomena, and similar to Mahamudra, which is basically the ultimate nature of phenomena, there's a ground Mahamudra and there's a ground Dharmata, meaning the true nature of Dharmata. The commentary on the difficult points of the Buddha Kapala Tantra, composed by Sara, explains the great emptiness as opposed to regular emptiness. Great emptiness emphasizes the union of emptiness and luminosity, of emptiness and the possession of Buddha qualities. That great emptiness, the seal, endowed with the most sublime of manifestations, i.e. all the Buddha qualities, is Mahamudra. Mahamudra, intelligent lady, means that the Bhagavati goddess is Mahamudra, because the nature of great emptiness seals all Tathagatas, is identical to all Tathagatas. In the realm of ultimate reality, all these phenomena are indistinguishable. The commentary on the difficult points of ascertaining Abhishekas, written by Ramapala, pinpoints the etymology of Mahamudra and its essence. Pinpoints. Because it imprints its mudra on the other 3 mudras, it is Maha and a mudra, great and a seal. It is not reached by analysis. It's the very essence of what does not abide. The essence of what does not abide anywhere, in any way, at any time. It is actualized. It's the essence of non-abiding, but it can be actualized by reverence for and continuous cultivation of path wisdom. It is non-existent. So it's not a thing, it's not an entity, it's free from cognitive obscurations, and the rest presumably implying the obscurations of the kleshas and maybe the obscurations to meditation. It is the ground for all excellence. It is the one essence of existence, i.e. samsara and nirvana. It embodies great non-referential compassion and is the one Mahasukha Kaya, the great bliss Kaya, the body of great bliss. That is Mahamudra. All those citations identify ground, path, and fruition Mahamudra. Similarly, there are many ways that Mahamudra is discussed in the Tantras and the Buddha Samaya Yoga, in the Buddha Sama Yoga Tantra, Samvarodaya Tantra, Vajrapanjara, two-part Vajra, Sampuja, and elsewhere, and in the texts by Mahasiddhas, such as the 7 Siddhi texts, which are a famous set of 7 Indian Mahamudra texts. But I will not elaborate more here because it would be too much. Thank you. In brief, we know that all the presentations on the ground, abiding state of phenomena, natural emptiness, natural connateness, equality, unchanging bliss, great bliss, being free from arising, abiding, and ceasing, profound peace, and freedom from elaborations in the tantras and texts of the Mahasiddhas are all presentations of Mahamudra. So this long list of terms of other ways of describing the ultimate are all Mahamudra, and this is very similar to a very famous text attributed to Padmasambhava as a term of Padmasambhavas, where it's called the natural liberation of the ultimate state or something like that. And at the very beginning, he gives this long list of different ultimates, and he's including Mahamudra and Mahaati, and he says these are all the same. In that case, when a certain person makes the oblique criticism aimed at others, therefore I do not maintain a Mahamudra that is not taught in the Tantras, it is simply the talk of someone who has not used their intelligence to examine the intended meaning of the sutras and tantras. Their approach in those sutras and tantras does not operate on the level of exclusions or positive inclusions, that is, negations or affirmations, meaning that the approach of Mahamudra presented in the sutras and tantras does not exclude the approach provided outside of the sutras and tantras, nor does it necessarily include all of them, which is a very somewhat vague statement, and basically it's a little bit unclear to me. I don't know about you guys, but like on the one hand, there's this great effort to show how Mahamudra is presented in the sutras and tantras, and then there's this great effort to show that it's presented in a more ultimate way, seemingly outside of the sutras and tantras. Believe it or not, we finished early this evening. So if you have a headache, we could stop at this point, or we could discuss, or we could continue and get a little ahead of ourselves. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of this whole section? What do you make of it?
I think we should discuss.
Good. You
Because,
start.
oh, well,
What is Mahamudra?
right. So there's all these, equal statements. This is this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. And then, what is the main point of this section? I don't think I really get it.
Yeah. Anyone else? What is the main
There's
point
the
of this?
ground path fruition.
Yeah, so we get certain schemes. We've got 2
Yeah.
schemes for Mahamudra. There's the ground Mahamudra, path Mahamudra, and fruition Mahamudra. And the second scheme is there's the 4 mudras, which appears to be a scheme that's common to the tantras in general, and sometimes a scheme that's used to present the progression of Mahamudra in all sorts of various ways. So what is the main point of this whole section? And this is supposed to be part of generating confidence. How are we doing in terms of confidence in the Mahamudra tradition? Has your confidence in this tradition increased?
I think the takeaway is that it's very hard to pin down.
I think that's a very important point.
And
That
yet I think that that it's also giving a flavor of it. And that, so on one hand, it's, as you just said, it's very hard to pin down. And yet on the other hand, there's a way in which, with all of this accumulation of different statements, it gives a little bit of a flavor that you can start to try to connect to. Or flavor may not be even the right word, since that suggests, I mean, they talk about no characteristics, and all of that sort of thing, you know, no characteristics, yet it's blissful, and all that sort of thing. So it starts to give you a little bit of a way of conceiving of it, and yet at the same time, it tells you, you know, you can't conceive of it, it can't be explained. So I think
yeah, I
that,
think those two very much go together. That it can't be pinpointed, but it can be pointed to in different ways, in a great variety of different ways. It can be pointed to.
and the idea that it can be experienced,
Yes.
even if it can't be described, it can be experienced.
Yeah. Even though there's one quote that pinpoints, and yet we said that it's hard to pinpoint it, but Ramapala pinpoints it. It imprints its mudra on the other three. It is not reached by analysis. It's the essence of what does not abide. It is actualized by reverence for and continuous cultivation of path wisdom. Non-existent, free from obscuration, cognitive obscurations, and so on. It's the ground for all excellence. The one essence of samsara and nirvana. It embodies great non-referential compassion. At the same time, it is great. So non-referential compassion is the third of and the highest of three types of compassion. There's compassion towards sentient beings. There's compassion that refers to the essence of reality, and then there's compassion which is without reference point, as presented in Chandrakirti's Introduction to the Middle Way. And then there's one. It is the one bliss, great bliss, Mahasukhakaya. So yeah, it's hard to pin it down. It's hard to limit it. It's presented in all these different ways, I think, for a reason, right? Kevin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, stepping back, it seems like a literature review of descriptive texts that can't be concise, that can't be specific because of its nature.
Yeah,
That's my
it's
general
it's
takeaway.
presented it's presented in different ways in different sources, and
Yeah, in descriptive ways because it's not definable as um, as language.
it's inexpressible. So it has this contradictory quality of being inexpressible, and yet all the varieties of ways that it's presented all sort of point in the same direction, at least, towards inexpressibility, inconceivability. But
And with all these different descriptions, could it speak to the fact that all these different people writing on it experienced it differently, or they all experienced the same thing and expressed it differently?
that's a great question. What do other people think? Did all these siddhas experience the same thing and express it differently, or did they actually have different experiences and express it differently because of that?
I would say it's convergent. They experience different things at different times in different traditions, and they they seem to coalesce around a convergence of knowledge, understanding. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. That was nice. I love those terms. They coalesce around a convergence. I love that. Anyone else? Inez, and then Cynthia.
Um, I'm trying, at first I was trying to write everything down and make flashcards and pay attention to every little thing. But now I'm kind of like trying to watch it like a rainstorm, and everything's sort of foggy, and maybe eventually, like like glasses, it'll clear up a little bit.
Eventually, the mist. You'll keep cleaning your glasses over and over again, and eventually, the mist itself will clear.
Maybe just take the glasses off
Take
forever.
it right. That's great. Yeah, there's a tendency to like, okay, we're going to study Mahamudra. He's going to present what Mahamudra is, and he's, this is it. And so you get one definition, and you're like, okay, that's great. And then there's another one, and then, okay, well, that's good. And then another, and another, and another. It's like,
Three
you're,
more and four more.
yeah, the three, the four, this, another four. What else, Cynthia?
But then after all of those things, they then take these great lists of words and say, oh, they're all equivalent, they're all the same. Dharmakaya, ultimate wisdom, this, that, it's all the same. So as far as the question of what people experience, I guess I would venture to say that, well, that since Mahamudra encompasses all experience, that in that sense, people can experience many different things at any given moment. There's lots of different experiences, but that the essential aspect of Mahamudra that they're experiencing is the same. When it comes down to sort of the fundamental nature, I think that it boils down to kind of a common root or
So,
rootlessness, maybe.
So they experience like different qualities of it or different aspects, but ultimately they experience the same non-thing.
Yeah.
Sue,
So, something that occurs to me might be that the confidence might be like what he's doing is laying out that this is the lineage. This is like, because I know in my own life, that's something that you can rest in. And so maybe that's because it seems like from the section that we read in the last course of this, he doesn't lay things out for no reason. He's setting it up for something. So I guess that's, this is the beginning of this section. And so that's just one guess.
that's good. Yeah, those are some very interesting observations. He doesn't present this information for no reason, right? He's clearly has a number of things he could write, sort of anything that he could write, and he's chosen to include these quotes, not others, and these points, and not others. And so he's, I think one can have confidence in him that he's leading us somewhere and that he thinks it's helpful to do this sort of survey approach initially. And presumably then we'll focus down onto as the understanding and experience of Mahamudra as it's transmitted to him and as he transmits onward into the lineage which comes to us. Anyone else? Do they all experience the same thing, or do they experience and say it differently?
So we spend a lot of time talking about this Mahamudra meditation, of course, and Dzogchen Ponlop Rinpoche was talking about how your ability to completely relax will define how well you're able to do Mahamudra meditation. If you're 100% relaxed, you'll have 100% successful meditation, and so I'm thinking about, okay, well, so there's all this stuff about the Mahamudra meditation, and Tilopa's wisdom book that we're using, he starts off and says, well, you can't define it, you can't talk about it, but then he proceeds to talk about it for X number of pages or whatever. So, but what is the, Mahamudra? Is that like a view? And then there's Mahamudra meditation, So what are we exactly talking about here?
Yeah, well, that's something that I touched on at the very first class, that Mahamudra is a very elusive term because it covers
Yeah.
many different, what we would consider to be different, like word forms. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a noun, it's a verb, and it's an idea or a concept. It's a state of existence, and so it's presented in all these different ways.
Yeah, it seems like it's basically just sort of resting in the natural state and recognizing the true nature of reality, and that's pretty much all I've been able to figure out from.
But that's, I mean, as Derek was just saying, it's both that, which is the practice aspect,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also the view, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of what we just went through a lot of
Right.
and
Right.
it's also the nature of reality. So there's this
Mm-hmm.
quality of view, there's this quality of it is the essence of everything, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's a way that you approach that through practice. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really, as you
All
said,
of the above.
yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like, you could say it's equivalent to the term Buddhism. There's the ground or view of Buddhism, there's the path or practice of Buddhism, and there's the fruition of Buddhism. And then in this tradition we say, well, the ground is Mahamudra, and we have the view of Mahamudra as being inexpressible, beyond thought, that which is beyond abiding and ceasing, and so on. All these ways that it cannot be contained and captured by logical, intellectual mind. And then there's the practice of Mahamudra, which has the phases of shamatha vipassana and goes through, presumably these experiences of the mudras will come into play, and progresses along what are known as the four yogas, the four stages of Mahamudra: one pointedness, simplicity or non-elaboration, one taste, and non-meditation. And then there's the fruition of Mahamudra. And the view of Mahamudra as being unchanging nature of reality sort of pervades all those different aspects of the path, and and then the fruition is the understanding of how that state, Mahamudra, pervades all of those different practices of the path. And so we understand Mahamudra. What is Mahamudra? We understand Mahamudra is like saying, when we say, what is Mahamudra? Mahamudra is the nature of reality as it's described in the ultimate Vajrayana tradition, which is not that different from the Mahayana tradition. It's the supreme, it's the emptiness endowed with the supreme of all aspects. It's, we just saw a million different ways of describing Mahamudra is the ultimate. And then what is the practice of Mahamudra is trying to experience that ultimate, trying to experience how our experience, our reality of concepts and labels and categories and things and characteristics is at the same time not different from ultimate reality, Mahamudra. I think that's our path, is trying to understand how to bring together the two truths of our relative experience and the ultimate nature of our relative experience. And the fruition is where those two are no longer different, and there's no need to try to blend one with the other or sort of mix them or eliminate one and experience the other, because only Mahamudra remains, only the true nature remains. Something like that. Cynthia?
And that just reminds one of my favorite lines was when it was the one about that abandoning the path is the path.
Yeah. Which goes to what Tara said initially about relaxing. So
Hmm.
relaxing is not about like, kicking back in the couch and watching TV, right?
And
What is,
also just in terms of what you said too, that, the point of understanding that all these things are no longer different, the relative and the absolute, that's also kind of uh, abandoning the path, because otherwise we're sort of making distinctions, and you do this or you don't do that or whatever, and so abandoning the path is kind of letting go of all that.
yeah, abandoning the idea that there's a path that gets somewhere, goes from and to somewhere. So what is relaxing? What is the point of relaxing? What is this relaxation that Pull and Rinpoche emphasized so much? Tara, you
Well,
heard
I
him
imagine
say
it's like, total lack of grasping. Just,
grasping. What type of grasping? What is grasping?
um, well, that you're fixating on any one thing, that you're, trying to achieve something. You're not trying to achieve something, you're just resting.
So relaxing conceptual reality, relaxing
Yeah,
conceptual
that's kind
mind,
of how I think about it.
and then also relaxing our emotional
Hmm.
framework, relaxing those two frameworks, emotional sort of the wanting or not wanting, being comfortable or uncomfortable, or happy or unhappy, relaxing all those um, uh, uh, qualifications on our experience, and then relaxing the idea of experiencing, the idea of practicing, the idea of anything, the idea of transcending ideas. So can we go about our day in a relaxed fashion without like bumping into things and dropping things? And Mary Beth,
So, something about this idea of like characteristiclessness, right? Not
quite a
having
tongue twister.
characteristics.
Yeah,
And that question about like whatever this thing that's not a thing is, that maybe we're all trying to experience, but not until we've experienced not like selflessness, right? First, we have to have that. But I mean, like, what does same mean? If it doesn't have characteristics, then what is same or different? And like, I feel like it's like all those characteristics that get in the way and make the situation stressful in the first place, that we need to like relax from it. So
that's a great description of the relaxation. Yeah, relaxing from what? The identification of characteristics.
they're
From
everywhere. There are a lot of them too.
but the characteristics exist in the objects, or do they exist in the perceiver?
Well, I mean, neither.
Oh, that's right. That's good. Yeah. So when you relax the characteristics, that the identification of them that exists in the perceiver, then they don't exist in the perceived either, because we project them onto the perceived. Yeah. So that's a good way of presenting relaxation.
And I think it's also um, is tied up in the idea of concept. We're really, in a sense, trying right now among us to develop a concept of what Mahamudra is, but the idea is that it's not a concept, and that's so hard for our minds to grasp.
Yeah, we're trying to conceptualize that which is beyond concepts. We're trying to come up
Right.
with the idea of that which is beyond ideas. What is it that's beyond our ability to know it? How do we know that which we can't know?
Well, experientially, that we can't know it through conceptual knowing because it's beyond that.
So we have to let go of the normal apparatus, the normal way of knowing.
And so
I
it's interesting because we've been talking a lot about trying to do this and trying to do that. And so one of the key little, things is how to, rather than doing, is just being.
Yeah, undoing. Yeah,
how to know
non-action.
by feeling, by experiencing, not by thinking and knowing. It's very hard.
Yeah. Well, feeling and experiencing. If you said that to a person outside of this context, it'd be sure, right? Yeah, no problem. But we know that you meant something different than that. But it's funny how the language can be misconstrued, or it can
I
be limiting to us. Sorry.
I think of for relaxing, I say soften,
Mm,
and that's the thing that helps me the most. For some reason,
yeah,
I can listen to that and then again soften, soften.
that's
And it's
great.
amazing you can just kind of keep going. How soft
So
could you get?
yeah, so first you say soften, and then your mind says soften what, and then you soften that question, right? Or what does soften mean? And then you soften that question.
Yeah, I don't know. For some
That's
reason, I can
relaxing.
take the direction.
That's relaxing.
Soften.
We need more softener. Time it is, the timeless time. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope this was helpful in gaining confidence in that which is beyond understanding. I think that was the point, is gaining confidence in, um, this path focuses very directly on the fruition, the ultimate. All other paths like talk endlessly about how to get there, how to get to the state of liberation beyond conceptual mind. And this path starts with beyond conceptual mind, and just keeps saying, okay, let go of concepts. Okay, let go of concepts. Relax, soften. So whatever then is presented in the context yet in this yet to come has to be understood within that framework of letting go of concept, of just relaxing. All the different categories come at us, all the different descriptions. Just relax. So let's conclude with our dedication. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thank you, everyone. Great to see you.
Thank you,
Be
Derek.
well, relax. Take care. See
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Derek.